Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sarah Geithlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And I'm Nally, the artistic director of the IRL Festival.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 We've got big news.
Do we ever? We have a brand new website.
And so many amazing things to check out on it.
BonnPark.com.
What can we find there?
You can listen to our episodes right on the site.
You can check out the Bonn Park community blog.
You can find out how you can partner with us.
Oh,
So
and
Sue,
the
thank you so
shopping.
much for
So
joining
much
us
fun
today. We're
merchandise.
so happy.
I'm going to buy
have you here.
myself the I'm the Marshall
Thank
Ward
you.
tote.
I'm happy to be
Me too.
I will mention for
BonnPark.com.
just our sake
Check
of
us out.
giggles that we are taking a second run at this.
Yes.
Yeah, the first recording did not record.
It was a first
Yeah.
for Bonn Park, but we're rolling with it, and you're being very gracious.
It was the wee people. They get in there.
The wee chancers got in there, and
Sue, I was excited to see you because I haven't seen you in years.
Yeah.
And I've only really gotten to spend a few moments with you back when you did Stitch and Kitch, which is one of my favorite craft markets, not just locally. It's just, I've been
Yeah.
to tons of craft markets and I've always loved Stitch and Kitch. And you made amazing, little works of art there. And tell us about that, how you started off, making stuff and doing Stitch and Kitch.
Yeah, I think I've always been drawn to where creative community is kind of surfacing, and Stitch and Kitch came out of a wonderful, dynamic group of people who just wanted to put on a show, all very talented, so talented. And I just loved how they were going about it. So I was invited in, and I jumped in all feet, and I was there for I think 8 to 10 years or something. Just loved being a part of that. What they were building.
And it could have been more grassroots, like little flyers on like red pieces of paper.
homemade flyers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Stitch and Kitch.
yeah.
I know.
And wait, for anyone who doesn't know, like there could be people new to the city. What is Stitch and Kitch, right? I mean, went to many, but if you had to describe it, what would you say?
Well, I would say it's a curated artisan show. We try to definitely focus on as many local as possible, but we have people from all over who apply. And it's curated in that just trying to show a variety of things and good quality and interesting artistry that's out there.
Am I right in thinking that there was like a submissions wait list for quite some time? Like you can't. It turned from this tiny little thing into you have to apply to get in, and you might not make it that year. It's competitive.
And part of that was like you can't have 20 potters.
No.
Because we wanted everybody to do well, so that was definitely part of it, having to discern that balance.
Yeah.
But that was one of the reasons too that they moved to CG, because that space is so huge, and they just needed more space for more great artists. Yeah.
And the nicest people. Henry and his wooden vessels and
Henry's a gem.
yeah, just a super, super nice group of people. You want to give them money. You want to give them all your money. And, yeah.
Well, and I often wonder too if there's exposure there for some people, if that's helped. Like a lot of great people have come through there and gone on to do some great things. So Bareface, I mean, he's all over the place, that guy.
Or Tamara Robinson, who did these incredible cards with these dolls on them, photographs that her sister took.
Oh yeah,
I would
love
show up
those.
every year and buy those all up for teachers, for your kids' teachers. So
nice.
yeah. So you were an event planner as part of that, and so that I can see how that would have transitioned beautifully into the work you're doing with IRL.
Yeah, so IRL, well, it came out of there was a few different angles. One of it was being with the family on St. Patrick's Day and looking through the paper and not finding anything that we wanted to do. There was no films, there was no theater, there was nothing related to Irish culture. The only options were to go to the pub and have this terrible green beer. It wasn't even good Irish beer. That was, like happy to go to a pub, but it's got to be good beer. And so that was, we were like, oh, well, maybe next year we should, put on a film or put on a play or something like that. And we kind of left it. But I think it was percolating. And then a friend of ours, Ruth, she's Jewish, but she plays in a Celtic band, loves Celtic music. And we're just hanging out with her one day, and she said, we really should do something, because the way people celebrate St. Patrick's Day is terrible. And if it was my culture, I'd feel really insulted. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. And I think Irish people are just so used to, let people have their fun and their shenanigans, and, we'll go about our business. But something about that, I think, kind of struck me. And it was like, you know what? Yeah, I'd like to actually be proud of it. I don't want the city and the businesses and the residents that live around, anywhere where there's shenanigans to be hating on Irish culture and St. Patrick's Day, because that stings, right? That is who I am. So, but how do we redefine that? How do we sort of, reframe what that looks like locally? And so then we started approaching little businesses, and there was so much enthusiasm. We had no money. We only had partners. We had Celtic bands. There's so many Celtic bands locally. They were willing to play for free a couple of times in that first year. I mean, we pay them. We always wanted to pay them.
To us that artists are paid. Yes.
Oh, very important.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was more that they were also like, everybody said, yes, we have to have something other than the crap that's out there right now, right? The support that we got was fantastic. And then out of that, right, once it grew, then we're able to obviously get grants and charge money and yada yada and pay. So but it started out of a community interest in having some actual genuinely cultural things to go to at that time of year.
Not just green beer and funny hats.
Yeah. You know what? I love seeing streets full of people wearing green. I don't care if they're sitting on the lawns at Ezra Street, because there is a history to why people wear green, that it was illegal. So there's certain things about that which I'm happy to have people run around going, I'm Irish for a day, because it was a thing that Irish people weren't proud of for many centuries. So I don't want to totally dismiss the celebrations that people have. Just wanted to offer a little bit something else.
Well, speaking of that, talk about some of the storytelling that goes on at the festival, and what people could come and see and learn about Irish culture.
Yeah, so we try to explore the culture from all kinds of different angles. So one of them is theater. We've partnered with Lost and Found Theater. Patty Gillard Bentley, she's done her show. She has Irish roots. Kieran Myers. We had a showcase of different people. Lee Cooney, I don't know if you know Lee Cooney. He has the smallest theater, the small cinema in Stratford, that guy. Anyways, he's Irish as well. So all these people have these different connections, and they were writing about it. They were exploring it. So we had a panel one time of all these people, playwrights, who were exploring their Irish and Irish Canadian stories. So we tried to explore the stories through theater, through film, lots of film. We had a film premiere by an Irish professor who works at Concordia about the history of Irish immigration into Quebec and Montreal. So we try to keep it relevant so that people hear, because a lot of people say, oh, I'm Irish, but like 5 generations ago. And that's still part of your story, right? And how did your family come over at that time? So we want to keep it accessible, I guess, for people who are exploring that. Storytelling also, we just sometimes do straight up Irish stories. There's a great storyteller from Toronto that we bring down, an Irish fella. And he's so engaging. Sometimes it's hard to understand him because his accent's still pretty thick, but we have kids stories. We do a big thing at the museums where we program that, paint the museum green, and we have storytelling there for kids, about the fun things, right? Leprechauns are actually the fun things about Irish culture. But we tell stories about more than just leprechauns, but so storytelling is really important. And a lot of times that happens through music as well. That's a big part of the storytelling. And even through the food, right? Because one time we had a dinner that had beef tongue, and that was very commonly the food of Irish people because it was the food of poor people. And so that's part of our story and our storytelling is through that.
I'm familiar with the horror movie Leprechaun.
Yeah.
And also I grew up with leprechauns being represented in cartoons and things of that nature. But what is the story of leprechauns when it comes to Ireland? And how are they generally perceived in storytelling?
Yeah, well, they're very, they can be very mischievous. Right. And it's part of that whole, there's a sort of underbelly of magic in Ireland. I think it's part of the spirituality, the belief in worlds around us that we can't quite see or grasp. And leprechauns are definitely part of that. And they permeate the culture in all kinds of ways. They're not always fun. They can be quite mischievous, and most of the stories are about them causing trouble, to be honest. But it is kind of a fun, like it's something that appeals to people when they think of Irish culture, and that's fine. We had a little we did a little geocache, or sort of not a geocache, but a scavenger hunt, and we placed a leprechaun around and gave people directions to go find it around town, and kids love that, leprechauns popping up places. It's part of one of the fun things.
That's a fun family activity. So Marshall's brought up the film Leprechaun, and you had a screening of that film.
Yeah.
And tell us a bit about the film portion of your festival.
Yeah, there's so many great films. So we did Leprechaun at the Apollo. We've done the movie The Pub. We had Carrick's Children of the Carricks, which was that film premiere. We've done a few Gaelic films, which has been interesting. Because it's funny, because people will go all the time to see a French film or Italian or Spanish or something, but you never think of going to see a film in Irish, right? So it was just like any other foreign film. So that was kind of neat. It felt like we were on a different stage in a way, right? We also, we try to show a lot of sort of Canadian Irish connected films. The one about the origins of hockey, that was actually mostly in Irish as well. And that one, a lot of people showed up to that, and a lot of good discussions, sort of shook people up. Oh, is this really where hockey came from? There's a lot of just debate on that one. And then there was, we also want to show the contemporary ones. So the one about the record store, Good Vibrations in Belfast and things like that. Because Ireland it's a culture that's moving and evolving, right, with its people, and it's not just stuck in the past with the green hills and the Aran sweaters and the fiddles. There's so much more that's come after that.
And what is that outdoor event I've heard about that involves some fire and storytelling and I guess legends? And can you talk about that? What is that?
Yeah, so Samhain, spelled Samhihain. Never said as it's spelled. That's a little, I don't know if that was a sense of humor when they came up with Gaelic, but Samhain is the fall festival, so it's one of the Celtic days of the year, and there's certain cross days, and that's one of the most important ones because it's a Celtic New Year, and it's basically when there's sort of the veil between the worlds of the living and the passed on is thin, so you're supposed to be able to connect with spirits, ancestors, people that have passed. It's kind of like the Day of the Dead kind of idea. And it's what our celebration of Halloween currently comes from. So Irish people from years, thousands of years, whatever, would dress up, and that was to keep spirits away. So the spirits, if they happen to be nearby, they wouldn't recognize you. That's why people dressed up. They would go around collecting for charity, and they wouldn't get candy at the time, but they would get, coins to give to some charity. They would carve turnips, and you'd always put a candle in it to keep spirits away. So there's all these fun traditions, and fire is a big part of Celtic culture, and so the fire is very present in that. There's big bonfires all over Ireland for what's now called Halloween, but Samhain, and they would be on top of mountains, and that would be sort of all the people would gather around these big beacons, and that would be their celebration of having gotten through. It'd be New Year's for them, right? Got through another year, and sort of a cleansing of the past year. There'd be all kinds of special foods like barnbrack. It's kind of like a fruit cake, but you would have a coin in it and a ring, and everything would symbolize different things. And it was basically, a big party, lots of storytelling, lots of dancing, lots of music. And so we're trying to bring that back. And it's not to say anything about Halloween, but it's just, hey, this is where this comes from, and let's have fun with, doing it this sort of way as well.
And does that celebration have to do with like the end of a harvest season then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Taking a minute to look back and give thanks and honor the year.
Yeah, and it was coming into like the darkest time of the year, so that big fire had to do with that. Yeah, getting ready to sort of hunker down for the next few months. Yeah.
So IRL is a nonprofit community organization, and you're the artistic director, as you said. Tell us about what that entails for you, because to me it sounds like a lot of work, but I want to hear about it. I want to hear about it.
It sounds like all year round.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Well, it is. And so that was part of the thing, is that we wanted to show people that Irish culture wasn't just the 17th. Like there's Bloomsday, which is a big celebration in Dublin for James Joyce on the day that, Bloom walks around, does all his things in Ulysses. There's so much like Samhain, and then Beltana and Lunasa. Like there's always St. Bridget's Day in February. There's so many times of the year where that are more important to Celts. Like St. Patrick's Day was kind of an imposed holiday a wee bit. It was a given holiday here. This is when you can celebrate being Irish. And for us, there's so many more interesting things all year round. So we didn't intend to go all year round, but we're going all year round. The festival was really for the community to give them something that wasn't green beer oriented. But yeah, so basically we have a very small committee, a lot of great people involved. And it's really about how we partner with different businesses and organizations in town that makes it even possible at all to pull off what we do. Because we are, as I said, a small committee. And a lot of people are in it just because they want to be a part of promoting some fun stuff.
So we first met you via Zoom when we were pitching to KW Awesome about a project that we were working on. And we ended up going through with that project. But then you emailed us, I don't know, a few weeks later, a few days later, something like that, and said, again, you need to speak to Clarence Catchedy and hear all about the work he's doing over at Crowshield Lodge. And then, of course, we wanted to invite you to come on the show as well. But tell us about that relationship that you have with Clarence.
Yeah, so I mean, Crowshield Lodge is such a beautiful endeavor, and so part of my learning more and more and more about the Irish story and the Irish history, and then the Irish history, the history of the Irish diaspora in Canada. It's, the more you know about your own culture, I find the more you can relate to others. And I had an opportunity to help them out with some stuff because as they were starting out, and it's been a beautiful experience, just learning about Indigenous culture and everybody's stories and the histories and how there's similarities in some of those struggles. It's been great for me to appreciate more, I think, where my people come from and what they've lived through and what's the stories behind the music and this, the culture and the art. And part of that's because of the reflection and the stuff I'm learning through Crowshield and Clarence.
And I only recently really gave some real thought to this, that first generation kids whose parents are immigrants, that can be a challenging thing growing up. In our first run at this recording, Sara mentioned, I think she did an amazing job talking about how it can be very insular for a kid growing up in a house where they've brought their homeland into this home, and that's what they know, and then they walk out the front door, and now they're somewhere else. And did you experience some of that? I guess it's sometimes called cultural duality.
Like my parents came here with nothing, and they came here because of the possibilities of what Canada offered. It was a big move for them. They were 21 and 22 when they came over. they did have an aunt and uncle who lived here. So we would, in Toronto, we would go up and down all the time. And so it felt like we had a bit of that cultural connection still, and some family, but really all of our family still lived, and still now mostly lives in Ireland. So that was really important for us to go back and forth and to stay connected. And I think they tried to keep that connection strong. But they were really interested in what Canada was about. I mean, they came here because they loved Leonard Cohen. So, and my name is Suzanne, right? Like, you know, there was things they were excited about Canada. And they were poor students. They went to U of W. That's how we ended up in Waterloo Region. And even though we would try to go back, well, it was later on, we would go back every couple of years and stay connected. Here, they started, you know, they were playing Irish music still. So contemporary Irish music like Furies and Planxty and fun stuff like that. But, you know, we'd play that at home, and they'd throw in some Gaelic words every now and then just for fun. But then we'd also they'd bring us to powwows or bluegrass festivals, or like they were just so interested in everything that was around, that it wasn't only about our culture, because they were here to find out what this was all about too. And I really appreciate that now. At the time, I'm not sure I was a big fan of bluegrass, but you know, I can see now why they were just so excited to explore all the cultural things that were going on here, because there's a lot in this area.
Sometimes it's through sports and entertainment that is your introduction to culture. You know, in the 70s, I would have been learning about Russia and Czechoslovakia through NHL hockey, or world hockey, I guess. And in the case of pro wrestling, which I've been a fan for 40 years, some of the toughest wrestlers are from Ireland. They have names like Becky Lynch and Sheamus and O'Shaughnessy and Fit Finlay, right?
Really?
But all of them always had a shillelagh hidden under the ring. And this was a very ominous weapon. Can you shed some light and share some backstory on the shillelagh?
Yeah, shillelaghs, they're really cool. So they're actually a weapon. They're used as a walking stick, but there's a history of them being used to fight like workers fighting for rights. That happened in Ottawa Valley, and they were all Irish immigrants who had these Irish fighting sticks called shillelaghs, and there is actual moves. It's considered the Irish martial art, and there are people that there's now groups that are teaching it all around the world. And there's a guy locally who does it, Steve Higgins, great guy. He's also a Tai Chi guy. And so he'll do these beautiful moves with this stick that, you know, if you sped it up, you're going to be in trouble. So he did a workshop for us, and we put it out there on our YouTube, and we hit this weird vein of like thousands of people that are into Irish stick fighting. So I don't know if it's been a resurgence or if it was always out there and I just never knew, because it was new to me. I'm still discovering all the time things.
Maybe
about
they were
the
watching
culture.
Belfast Brawls on WWE television.
I think I need to watch that. I don't even know about this.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, no, things are about to pick up when the shillelagh comes out.
Oh,
Into the
no
ring.
doubt.
Yeah.
Fighting
Never
Irish.
heard of this.
Fighting Irish, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to take a moment to hear from this episode's sponsor.
Ever wondered what happens inside a black hole?
Or what quantum mechanics tells us about reality?
Curious about how the universe began or how it will end?
Feed your curiosity with Conversations at the Perimeter, a science podcast from Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics.
On each episode, we chat with a different scientist about the grandest questions in the universe, from the quantum to the cosmos.
Geek out to Conversations at the Perimeter, wherever you get your podcasts.
And now back to the show. So then, talking about community and sports, we also know that you were heavily involved in the derby, in the roller derby scene in K-Dubs. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was around when Tri-City started. So I was there for, I think, a little over 10 years or so. I was involved in the leadership of the league. I helped put on the big, we did the first playoff tournament outside of the U.S. So that was a big deal. And since then, after that, I actually ended up working for the Women's Flat Track Derby Association. That's a national, kind of like the FIFA of derby or the NHL, whatever, governing body of the sport. And then I ended up doing their playoff and championship tournaments around the world. And fantastic community there as well. Some great Irish teams, I will say. Spent many years doing Derby.
And what's your favorite thing about Derby?
I think it's the people. Like there's great people, and they're such a variety of people. Like I've never seen such a huge gamut of skills and trades and interests, and so interesting.
And roller derby has it's like commissioned, like there's somebody overseeing. There's a governing body that oversees all the rules and regulations and of roller derby. That's really interesting because it doesn't have a big television presence, right? It's not in the Olympics. It's not. It's really. It looks like the Wild West. It's its own thing, right?
Yeah. But the rules are decided. So the governing body, it's a membership organization. So members from all around the world, is about 400 plus leagues. They all vote on the rules. So if they said tomorrow we want to start elbowing people again, like in the 70s, that would come back if everybody voted on it. So it's interesting because it's something I haven't seen a sport operate so collectively on such a massive global scale. Like there's thousands of people voting on what the rules should be. So it's fascinating.
When I watch roller derby, there's a certain there's a certain streamline to it. Sometimes it looks a bit like speed skating. Other times players are up higher and their heads are turning around looking over their shoulder kind of thing. How do you train for roller derby?
Oh man. You know what? It's kind of like a cross between maybe rugby or football and speed skating training, because it's a speed skating boot that we're wearing. We're not wearing the nice pretty skates. They're an athletic tool. We train. We learn how to take hits. We do a lot of speed training for the laps. We do a lot of footwork stuff, because if you have to suddenly jump over somebody on a track so you don't break your leg or their arm, you want to do that. So a lot of training into agility and a lot of strength training too, because if you are trying to hold back 2 or 3 players on your own, which is possible, you need a lot of leg strength for that. So,
and I imagine, you have to learn how to roll if you're going to go over.
Yeah.
Which I do not know how to do. I'd like to state for all our listeners, if I get hit, I'm just going down. There's no tucking. I'm just falling and flailing. Yeah. I think I've said that a few times on our show about different things.
Yeah.
But you have to know how to take that fall. Like, what's a technique? Like, how do you do that?
Well, a lot of it's just going with the momentum. My dad used to race motocross, and he did gymnastics so that he could just roll and spring off of motorbikes, right? And it's that same idea, because when you're going top speed on skates and the physics of somebody hitting you on a corner in a certain part of your body, you are going to fly. So if you can't roll out of that, that's going to hurt. So, and sometimes you don't have the time, but I think the muscle memory with so much training about, they've developed, probably a lot of years of injuries. They've come to some finally good techniques for figuring out how to do it
and something
safely.
I feel like I've observed about roller derby is, one is there's room for self-expression, right? Everything from your name that you come up with to your hair color, maybe certain other things about your outfits, right? To the fact that it appears that all body types are a suitable fit for roller derby. In fact, there's an advantage to being any kind of body type.
Yeah, I think that was also one of the things that attracted me. You sort of feel like you feel strong, you feel capable. It's one of the only women's sports where you can hit people consensually. It's fine, it's allowed. And you have this sort of, this mantle of a name, right? And people have different names for all kinds of different reasons. Mine is Susie Slam. Excuse me. And it's the only time I've kind of allowed myself to be called Susie, because I always felt very patronizing. But when I had Slam on the end, I'm just like, no, that's okay.
You can own it. It's a different persona. Right?
And and so people, it gave them that, I don't know, that fortitude outside of their normal life. And I think that's what it meant to a lot of people. Yeah.
It sounds like your parents had a huge role in creating an excitement within you to get involved in the community and go out and reach out and enjoy the community that you live in. Because everything that you do is a community related event or some type of offering in that way. What is that? What's that passion for you?
Well, besides being an extreme extrovert, I do.
What's that like?
Yeah.
Is it fun? It looks fun.
It's very frustrating in a pandemic. I love community building. I think so much good comes out of community. I think the only way we're going to get through this life and some of the situations we've caused as a species, we got to band together. But there's also should be joy and celebration, right? A lot of these things, there's purpose and meaning for them, for me personally, but they're also combined with celebration. So that's how I like to operate.
So what's coming up that's new and exciting for your festival this March?
We have we're going to try out a few new things. We do some art classes, so we're going to have some new Irish arts that people haven't tried before. And some new theater. We also just recently confirmed Morgan Toney, who's a Micmac fiddler from Cape Breton, and he's a young guy who is just bursting out onto the scene, and he does this mix of Celtic, Celtic / Cape Breton fiddling, mixed with Micmac singing and sort of ornamentation at times. So it
sounds amazing.
It's incredible,
yeah.
And we're just so stoked to have, because there's so many Irish and Indigenous people who have Irish heritage as well, and to find these artists who combine both of those is just so exciting. So we're really looking forward to him. Yeah.
Where should people go to find this information about this great festival?
Yeah. www.irishreallifekw.com. Very honored that people are so open to what we're offering, and that people are excited to explore a contemporary Irish culture, and willing to learn about the history, and willing to talk about who the Irish diaspora is in the world in these times. So yeah, it's a big honor to be able to do that.
Bonn Park is made possible with the support of the Kitchener Public Library and the Kitchener-Waterloo Community Foundation.
Our show is produced by Sarah Geidlinger,
And Marshall Ward.
with audio engineering by Sarah Geidlinger.
Bonn Park's original music is by Alan Lung. Harry, you still with us? We want to tell you about a fun project that we have. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We have another podcast called An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. Here's Colin Hunter of Kayfabe News to tell you all about it.
Welcome to An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. I'm Colin Hunter from Kayfabe News. Marshall is utterly obsessed with professional wrestling. Sara is utterly perplexed by professional wrestling. On each episode of An Unscripted Spectacle, Marshall and Sara talk with a different guest from the world of wrestling. Promoters, referees, journalists, and current and past stars of the Squared Circle to talk deeply about the strange magic of professional wrestling that has enchanted Marshall his whole life. Can they turn Sara into a fellow connoisseur of professional wrestling? She'll need some convincing.
I find out who Jimmy Corderas is.
Who the heck are you?
Oh, well, that's a good question. For those who don't know, I spent the better part of over 2 decades working in WWF/WWE, mostly as a referee inside the ring.
I have the honor of meeting the magnificent LuFisto.
I heard that you were described as the first lady of hardcore. I've just recently found out what hardcore is.
Yeah, thanks to Madman Pondo.
When I've learned that I was going to be inducted, it was like, it is now my time to tell the story of women's wrestling. Because so many times I've heard, oh, this is the first time this happens in women's wrestling history. And I'm like, no.
I learned all about the storytelling and writing process from Tom Casiello.
Yeah, I was in soap operas for 14 years. I was at Young and the Restless last. That was from 2009 to 2011. And so I thought, I'll go in for the interview. I'll be honest with them. If I blow it, I blow it. Not the end of the world. And I was there for 6 years, and I rose up the ranks to managing lead writer. And it was the most insane time period of my entire life.
I got a new skincare regime from RJ City.
Checking out your hair, and I wish that mine looked like yours. You have beautiful locks.
Thank you. The secret, this isn't a plug, it feels like an endorsement, is aloe vera. I have it here. I put it on my skin. I put it in my hair. I use the gel. I put a couple drops of peppermint in.
I have a plant right there on my
Good.
fridge.
Cut it open, squeeze it out, and put it, honestly, wherever you want. It's good for you.
I find out that Colt Cabana is just famous enough that he can still buy groceries. And Tyson Kidd tells me all about the people's elbow. Who knew?
Tyson comes to a complete stop, then brings his leg over the guy like he's going to do a leg drop. But the leg like keeps circling past the guy, and then he drops an elbow on the guy.
Oh, and the elbow represents like all the people of the fans?
Like
he's been voted, he's going to drop this elbow?
Well, he started calling himself the people's champion, and then that move just became the people's elbow.
And then there's also, as you know, there's the people's strudel.
Yeah. I mean, there's the people's eyebrow. There's a lot of people. Got a lot of people.
So check out an unscripted spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. Available anywhere you get your podcasts.